In a small New England town, Harrington High School was renowned not only for its outstanding academic program, but also for a dark secret. In 1983, during an unexpected lockdown, several students and teachers vanished without a trace. Despite thorough investigations, the mystery remained unsolved, turning into an urban legend. Decades later, a group of students decided to delve into this story for a school project. Nathan, the group's leader, was particularly captivated by the mystery, convinced that the truth was still hidden within the school walls. One evening, Nathan and his friends sneaked into the school, equipped with cameras and flashlights. As they explored the quiet hallways, the lockdown suddenly activated again. The loudspeakers broadcasted a cryptic message: "Stay where you are. Do not leave until further notice." The teens found themselves trapped, just like those who disappeared in 1983. As they searched for an exit, they began hearing strange noises, footsteps in the hallway, barely audible whispers, and occasionally a faint moan. Discovering an abandoned classroom, they found a dusty diary. It belonged to one of the missing students and revealed disturbing details. The diary described visions of shadows in the corridors and tormented dreams. The author had begun investigating old urban legends surrounding the school, including a story about an ancient ritual performed in the building's underground. Feeling a growing sense of dread, Nathan realized they needed to find that place. Continuing their exploration, they discovered a hidden door behind a bookcase in an old library. Behind it, they found stairs leading down into the depths of the school. With a mix of terror and curiosity, they descended, only to discover an ancient ritual room with strange symbols carved on the walls and an air heavy with mystery. Nathan began reading the inscriptions aloud, which seemed to be part of an ancient ritual. As he read, a cold breeze began to blow through the room, and their flashlights flickered. The shadows on the walls seemed to move as if alive. Suddenly, a whispering voice filled the room, speaking in an unknown language. The words echoed as if from another world, bridging a sense of despair and fear. Nathan and his friends realized that they had awakened something ancient and dangerous. Panicking, they tried to escape the room, but the door had mysteriously closed. Recalling the diary's words, Nathan suggested the only way out was to complete the ritual. Reluctantly, they began reciting the inscriptions together, hoping to appease the entity they had disturbed. As they spoke those ancient words, the room shook, and the voice intensified, almost in anger. Then, suddenly everything stopped. The cold breeze ceased, and the shadows retreated. With a final effort, Nathan flung open the door, allowing them to escape. Emerging from the school's underground, they found the high school silent and empty. The lockdown had been lifted, but there was no one in sight. The buildings and hallways, once familiar, now seemed foreign and menacing. As they headed towards the exit, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if the entity they had disturbed still followed them in the shadows. After that night, the mystery of the 1983 lockdown at Harrington High remained unsolved, but now it had a new chapter. Nathan and his friends never spoke publicly about their experience, but among themselves, they knew that they had touched something unfathomable and terrible, a secret hidden by the school for generations. In the following days, the high school returned to normal, but for those who knew the truth, it would never be the same. The hallways and classrooms now held echoes of a dark past, a silent warning of what lies hidden in forgotten places. However, the story doesn't end here. After the incident in the school's underground, most of the boys from the group, whose name remained unknown, began to exhibit strange behaviors. Initially, they seemed like mere effects of post-traumatic stress, nightmares, anxiety, and constant unrest. However, it soon became clear that there was something deeper and more sinister afflicting him. His friends noticed he began talking to himself, murmuring incomprehensible phrases, or responding to voices only he could hear. Sometimes they found him standing still, staring to the void as if seeing something others couldn't perceive. His personality seemed to change, oscillating between moments of lucid normality and episodes of odd behavior. Rumors of the students suggested he might have been possessed by a spirit or entity awakened during the ritual in the school's underground. Some recounted seeing him whispering words in an ancient language or finding him a trance in isolated places around the world. Nathan and the rest of the group, disturbed by their friend's transformation and subsequent disappearance, decided never to speak of what happened that night. There was a tacit agreement among them to keep silent, both to protect themselves and out of respect for their missing friend. In a small rural town, Oakridge Elementary School was known for its long history and being the site of a disturbing event. In 2005, during a normal school day, a sudden lockdown trapped students and teachers inside for mysterious reasons. When the doors finally opened hours later, all were safe, but deeply shaken. No one ever spoke of what happened during those hours, maintaining an eerie silence, known as the Silence of Oakridge. Over the years, many attempted to uncover the truth behind Oakridge's silence, but to no avail. Security camera footage from that day had mysteriously disappeared, and all the involved adults refused to discuss the incident. 20 years later, a journalist named Michael, haunted by the mystery since childhood, decided to return to Oakridge for a documentary. Approaching former students, now adults, he found many suffering from recurring nightmares and anxiety linked to the event. One former student, Sarah, agreed to speak with Michael. She recounted how, during the lockdown, she and her classmates had heard strange noises from the hallways, footsteps, whispers, and muffled screams. Then, suddenly, an oppressive silence fell over the school. When teachers finally let them out, they were all pale and terrified, but no one spoke of what happened. Sarah revealed that, during the hour of silence, they saw spectral figures moving among the classrooms, and shadows that seemed to take shape then vanish. Even as a child, she felt these presences were tied to a past tragedy of the school, perhaps an ancient fire she had heard about, which had claimed the lives of several children decades earlier. Michael, digging deeper, discovered the school had indeed been built on a site where an old school was destroyed in a fire in the 1940s. This fire had been nearly forgotten, and its victims never properly honored. Convinced that the spirits of the fire's victims were still present and seeking recognition and peace, Michael organized a commemorative ceremony at the school, inviting the community and former students present during the lockdown. During the ceremony, a small monument was erected in memory of the young lives lost in the fire. After the moment's erection, the evening seemed to proceed peacefully. However, a disturbing event disrupted the ceremony. A former student present during the lockdown, a boy named Kevin, suddenly ran out of the class, screaming he had gone to the bathroom. His flight seemed driven by incomprehensible urgency and visible fear. About 5 minutes later, a chilling scream broke the school's silence. "Please don't do it. Please no." Then everything returned to a deathly silence. The teacher, overcoming her fear, rushed to the bathroom from where Kevin's screams had come. The others, too, frightened to move, stayed behind. Opening the bathroom door, the teacher was met with a horrifying scene. Kevin was crouched in a corner, trembling and staring blankly, pointing towards the closed bathroom door. When the teacher opened that door, terror gripped everyone. The floor was covered in blood, but there was no sign of injury on Kevin or indications of another person present. The mystery of that blood remained unsolved. Even more unsettling was the change in Kevin. From that night, he developed a kind of selective mutism, unable to speak or explain what had been seen or experienced. Attempts at therapy and investigations led nowhere. Kevin remained trapped in his silence, his eyes seeming to hide unspeakable terror. The story of the unexplained blood and Kevin's mutism added a dark new chapter to the legend of Oakridge. Students and teachers who attended the school later often spoke of the eerie atmosphere lingering in the hallways, especially near the bathroom where the incident occurred. In a remote small town, Pinegrove Middle School was known as much for its excellent academic achievements as for a disturbing figure, the janitor, nicknamed Janitor Joe. Joe was a middle-aged man with a disheveled appearance and a piercing gaze, rumored to have a dark past. The halls were rife with whispers about him. Some said he had been in prison, others spoke of a troubled life, but no one knew the truth. Students shared tales of how Janitor Joe scared them, strange noises in empty classrooms, objects disappearing or found in impossible places, and, above all, his habit of suddenly appearing in dark corridors with a disquieting smile that never reached his cold eyes. A particularly daring group of students decided to investigate Janitor Joe. They wanted to see if there was any truth to the stories. One night, they sneaked into the school, planning to follow him and discover what he did after school hours. Hiding in the shadows, they watched Joe move with an eerie grace through the halls, stopping occasionally as if listening to something they couldn't hear. At some point, one of the students, Mike, broke away from the group, driven by curiosity to explore the janitor's office. Inside the office, Mike found old newspaper clippings on the walls, articles about unsolved disappearances and unresolved crimes. In the center, there was a photo of a child with eyes crossed out in red. As he examined these disturbing findings, he heard a heavy breath behind him. Turning abruptly, he found himself face to face with Janitor Joe. Joe's eyes glowed maliciously as he stared at Mike. With a terrifying smile, he began to tell a story of revenge and madness, about how he lost his son years ago, and how his tormented soul sought justice. He spoke of his enjoyment in frightening the students, watching and manipulating them for his macabre amusement. His voice was a hoarse whisper, laden with suppressed pain and anger. Paralyzed with fear, Mike listened as Joe detailed his actions, implying, without directly admitting, that he had caused the disappearance of several students over the years. He told how he had followed them, frightened them, and left clues that no one had ever connected to him. Suddenly, the other students burst into the office, having heard Mike's voice. Janitor Joe, startled, stopped and looked at them with a gaze mixing madness and sadness. Without a word, he quickly walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the corridors. The students, shaken and terrified, ran out of the school and called the police. When the authorities arrived and examined Joe's office, they found the newspaper clippings and the photo of the child, but no trace of Joe. Investigations revealed that Joe had indeed lost a son under tragic circumstances years ago, but there was no concrete evidence linking him to the disappearance or crimes. The community was rocked by the incident. Janitor Joe became a legend, a shadow hovering over Pinegrove. Some claimed to have seen him wandering in the woods near the school. Others told of hearing his footsteps in empty corridors. However, he was never captured, and no further evidence of his misdeeds surfaced. The students of Pinegrove Middle School continued to live with doubt and fear. The mystery of Janitor Joe remained unsolved, a dark stain in the school's history. For years, suspicion and stories about him circulated among the students, a constant reminder of the shadows hidden behind familiar faces and the untold truths that can haunt a place for generations. The tale of Janitor Joe, with his dark past and unsettling actions, remained shrouded in mystery. Some students swore they saw him watching them from the school's dark windows on full moon nights. Others reported strange noises and feelings of being watched when alone. But the truth about Joe, whether he had ever really harmed anyone or was just a tormented soul trying to scare others to exorcise his own pain, remained an enigma. The story of Janitor Joe became a cautionary tale, a whisper in the corridors, a reminder that sometimes the true horror isn't in the monsters under the bed, but in the shadows moving at the edges of our everyday lives, in the untold stories and unrevealed secrets. In the quiet American town of Greenfield, something extraordinary and terrifying unfolded at the local high school. On an ordinary school day, Mr. Harrison's class suddenly found itself in a lockdown. While the rest of the school went about its day, Harrison's students were isolated without explanation. Confused and frightened, the students speculated wildly about the cause of the lockdown. Mr. Harrison, known for his unorthodox teaching methods, tried to soothe the class. To distract them, he produced a Ouija board, suggesting they use it to pass the time. At first, the students were amused by the idea, but the mood quickly darkened. As they engaged with the board, disturbing messages began to appear. Nonsensical words, threats, and dark prophecies. The classroom lights flickered, and a chilling cold filled the air. Panic set in among the students, who accused Mr. Harrison of unleashing something dangerous. However, the teacher insisted it was just a game, a ploy to scare them and test their rationality. Tensions peaked when one student, Alex, began acting bizarrely. He spoke in an unrecognizable voice, claimed to hear voices commanding him to harm. The other students, now terrified, kept their distance as Alex whispered unsettling phrases. After hours of tension, the classroom door finally opened. Police officers and school psychologists greeted the students, revealing that there had been no real lockdown. It was a fake message created by Mr. Harrison for the class radio, intended to frighten the students as part of a twisted psychological experiment. Mr. Harrison was immediately arrested for endangering the safety and well-being of his students. The students, still shaken, were escorted out of the school, but the damage had been done. It seemed like the ordeal was over, but not for Alex. He continued to claim he heard voices telling him to kill his sister. Despite therapy and medical intervention, his mental state rapidly deteriorated. Eventually, Alex was admitted to a psychiatric facility, isolated and haunted by the voices only he could hear. The Greenfield community was rocked by the incident. Many students and parents wondered whether what happened in the classroom was the result of a cruel prank, or if the Ouija board had indeed unleashed something incomprehensible and evil. The tale of Mr. Harrison's experiment became a cautionary tale about human nature and the dangers of delving into forces beyond understanding.